Okay.
Ready?
We're ready.
Okay, great. Well, good evening. I'll call to order the meeting of Monday, May 8th. The first item on our agenda is the public hearing. So this is to receive public comments for our annual town meeting warrant articles that will be voted on by referendum on June 13th. So we will start in with those. If you do have public comment, we would ask that you come to the microphones here so we can hear you, and those that are listening to us live can hear as well. Article 1 is to elect a moderator. I don't think we'll have any discussion or need for that. And Article 2 is to elect terms for Select Board, Budget, Library, Director of SAD 28, School Board. I don't think we have any discussion on that. So Article 3 is, shall the town authorize the Select Board to enter into agreement with the Lesher Family Foundation that addresses the future of the use of the former Rockport Elementary School site and includes the following provisions. The town would accept a donation in the amount of $1 million from the Lesher Family Foundation to be used by the town to fund a project or projects that the town, in its sole discretion, determined should be funded by the donated funds. The town would agree to retain the title, and dedicate the former Rockport Elementary School site for use as a public park and recreation area. The Lesher Family Foundation will fund the design and construction of a public park and recreation area with input from community members, expending an amount of $3 million for such design and construction. And the Lesher Family Foundation will oversee fundraising to fund an endowment for the future operation and maintenance costs of the public park and recreation area. The Lesher Family Foundation will cover any shortfall in donated monies to ensure that annual operating and maintenance costs are paid by the endowment and not by the town. Do we have any public comment on Article 3? Seeing none, we'll move to Article 4. Would someone like to read our, oh, sorry, do we have a comment?
Eamon, Mary Jane, is there anything you wanted to add before we move?
You're more than welcome to. Come on up.
Just that we have a website and we have a survey on the website that explains more about the project, and the survey is asking for public comment on what should be in the park. So I hope everyone will take it. And if you could pass out my email.
Yep. And for those that cannot hear, there is, the Lesher Family Foundation does have a website, and there's a survey, and they are seeking input on what the community would like from a park perspective. So we will make sure that that address is available, and we'll give your email if you don't mind, and people can submit comments to you if they would like. Yeah, you're welcome.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. And John, do we need to read through every one of these? I know I started us off. Okay.
I think you can.
All right. Then I won't read
Fire
this
system.
gigantic Article 4, but Article 4 is to approve a capital project. This is specific for the West Rockport Fire Station. So the cost, principal, $3,758,675, interest, $3,231,453, for a total of $6,991,28. Do we have any public comment on the West Rockport Fire Station?
And I'll note,
Or
Amanda,
anything from Amanda or Bill, anything you would like to add about that? I know you've talked a lot about it, but
No, of course, happy to answer any questions, but I think we've been through the plans and the site plan several times now. So, yeah, we can take any questions.
Bill came very prepared, though, with all of his files. I feel, he's ready.
That's not all of it, but I'll be happy to share.
Yeah.
Whatever portion you'd like.
All right. Any public comment, anything anyone wants to address before we move on to Article 5? Okay, then, thank you. Article 5 is regarding amendments to the Rockport Land Use Ordinance zoning map to simplify the 906 and 907 zone districts and amend the corresponding 906 and 907 sections of the land use ordinance for clarity. Any concerns, comments, public comment? Orion, I don't know if there's anything else you wanted to add? No? Okay. Article 6, then, shall the town adopt amendments to the Rockport Land Use Ordinance zoning map to change parcel zone located in map 007, lot 087, from 904 to 902. And there will be a proposed, or a copy of that proposed map is on the town website and at the town office. Anything on Article 6? Seeing none. Article 7. Shall the town adopt amendments to the land use ordinance to place the solar farm ordinance within and to be known as Section 815 Large Solar Energy Systems, and with the proposed amendments pertaining to the large solar energy systems? Comments on Article 7? Seeing none. Article 8, shall the town adopt amendments to the Rockport Land Use Ordinance language pertaining to certain requirements of the state legislation? Article 8. Nope. Article 9, this is where we are getting into our budget for the year. So this is to see if the town will vote to raise the appropriate and following expenditures for the 2023-2024 fiscal year. It's a total of $8,991,617. Questions on Article 9? Moving along, Article 10, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the following as revenue from the following sources. Those include a list of items for a total of $3,260,111. Any questions, comments on Article 10? Okay. Article 11, to see if the town will vote to authorize the transfer of all unexpended balances to the fund balance and to authorize that overdrafts that may occur in the town operations in the 2023-2024 budget be taken from the fund balance. Questions on Article 11? Okay. Article 12, to see if the town will vote to authorize the select board on behalf of the town to sell and dispose any real estate acquired by the town for the non-payment of taxes and/or wastewater charges. Article 12, questions? Seeing none. Article 13, to see if the town will vote to set October 16th, 2023 and April 16th, 2024 as the tax installment due dates, and October 17th, 2023 and April 17th, 2024 as the delinquency dates. Questions on Article 13? Seeing none. Article 14, to see if the town will authorize select board and treasurer on behalf of the town to accept gifts, real estate, and certain funds, including trust funds, that may be left or given to the town. Concerns on Article 14? Nope. Article 15, to see if the town will authorize the select board to accept those conservation easements which the select board deem appropriate in the name of the town. Questions on Article 15? Okay. Article 16, to see if the town will authorize the treasurer to waive the foreclosure of tax lien mortgages pursuant to 36 MRSA Section 944 upon a finding by the select board that the ownership is of the property subject to the lien would be contrary to the town's best interest. Questions on 16? And finally, 17, to see if the town will vote to authorize the tax collector to enter into a standard agreements with the taxpayers establishing a tax club. Any questions on Article 17? Okay, seeing none. Any questions from the audience regarding the warrant? All right, then I will close the public hearing for the warrant articles. With that, we will go into our regular agenda for this evening, and we'll start with the town manager report.
Okay, so obviously the biggest matter over the last month or so has been, we had the tremendous storm last week. It once again caused damage predominantly throughout West Rockport, flooding, closed roads. Robinson Drive once again was an issue. Our crews were over there all morning, first with the water nearly took the culvert and took the whole road out. Luckily, the Jersey barriers and like were able to hold the water at bay. And once the water receded a little bit, our crews were able to sort of reconstruct and put enough gravel on top so people could get in and out. I wanted to go a little bit into that in my report because I want people to understand the process a little bit. It's an abbreviated process, but our engineers at Gartley and Dorsey put together a fix for the town that we could imply. Not enough to go out to get permits or to have constructed, but enough to really far further in that process than we should have within a month of the damage occurring. This is back in November of 2021. Since that point in time, we've seen no less than 5 different groups of FEMA staff come through the town office, do a walk around, drive around town, look at everything, meet with staff, go back. Different group comes through, and around and round and round we go. It has been probably the worst thing that in terms of bureaucratic red tape FEMA could throw at the town of Rockport, and they have. This is a project that is somewhere in the neighborhood of $600,000 to $800,000. It will require permitting from Maine DEP, Army Corps of Engineers. But the inability for the people we've been working with at FEMA to understand that, to work with us, Megan's been working on this every week, every single week, since about 6 months ago, they've been meeting weekly, but before that it was bi-weekly, about our storm and the status of our projects. And as I sit here tonight, we have how many one project that we've received? 4 of 11, but they are not the big ones. They're not Scotts Road or Chris's Road, they're not West Street Extension, and they're not Robinson Drive. If we had known, if we had known going into it, maybe there could have been things we had done differently, but I can't say that there's anything that the town would have done, should have done, could have done that would have avoided this situation. Photos were taken, damage was collected, spreadsheets were created, to the point where everyone comes through and says, wow, you guys do this better than anyone. And yet here we are,
Any money, right.
18 months later, without a repaired road, and the fact that because of the damaged state that road is in, we've had to go back at least 3 other times to come back and make sure it's still holding. So this is certainly a situation, the town could certainly spend the money. We could go out, actually the voters approved at town meeting, interim financing, so we could go out and have the fix done. It's not an issue of money. It's an issue of, do we want reimbursement? Do we receive what the federal government has created for a program to reimburse communities for disasters declared by the president and to reimburse in kind? And we simply can't ignore $600,000, $800,000. We just can't. And yet, we are on the phone every week. Megan's on the phone every week. Thanks to some help with some of the congressional offices, we've got a little bit stronger push on those matters last week, and I'm hopeful that will bear fruit for us. But it's embarrassing at this point that we go over there. When that storm came, and I saw Mike was sending me pictures, Jason was sending me pictures of the situation over there. And what do you tell the residents over there? Well, we're doing our best. Cold comfort, they're like, I gotta get out. I gotta go to a doctor's appointment. Well, hang on. There's not a road there, but we need to fix it. So it's just a really disappointing circumstance all around. I think there is some progress that's being made, and I think we are in small steps getting there. But the fact that, like I said, 18 months later, we're back to Robinson Drive with this far away from losing the whole road once again, just really isn't, it's very difficult to swallow.
Sure.
So, we did have damage elsewhere. Obviously, Robinson was the most notable. Washouts, those should be all fixed as of tomorrow, I think. We've had we've been a little bit light on our staff. Obviously, we had the retirements in Public Works, so we've had some people out having babies and things like that. So that made it a little difficult to get back to all this, but I think I said we'll be back to
Good.
normal tomorrow. So that's a good thing. Next up, so we mentioned the election. So the election, obviously, on the 13th. Absentee ballots will be available a week from today. Their sample ballot will be on the website soon, as well as, which includes all the candidates for office, but also all the articles we just went through. So those absentees, again, this is a little bit of a different process than what we've dealt with in non-COVID times. But the absentees are available for people to vote on the budget, which is not something that's normal, or, you know, any of these other articles that were just discussed. So people have an opportunity, if they're not available at normally what would be town meeting night, there's a way in which they can have their voice heard. So I hope people take advantage of that. That's something that wouldn't have been available in the past without the change to an all ballot warrant, so. Next up, talked about the Donut Festival. I won't talk too much about it because we have the traffic control plan
Yes.
later on, but a lot of good things coming up on that end. The KRT appraisal has started work on the statistical update on property values. So they've just gotten started. I suspect we'll have some information back at the next board meeting on the 26th. So keep an eye out for that. And let's see, we talked about, yeah, just one quick thing about Public Works. So this is the time of year when we're sort of doing our spring cleanup. And Pascal Ave in particular is one area where there was paving late in the season. And we heard about it through the budget process about, you know, some of these areas that had crosswalks that disappeared with the new pavement. And the challenge is that because of the cold temperatures, because it was so late in the season, we weren't able to get the painting done. So painting will go on this month. The problem is that there are a few select locations where Maine DOT has concerns regarding accessibility, and do not want us to paint in those locations. There's some locations that they don't want crosswalks unless we're able to make some modifications, dip downs, signage, dimple boards, all the types of things that allow accessible persons to be able to use the property. So, or use the sidewalks, so, and crosswalks. So, all I'm sort of getting at is we're gonna paint a number of crosswalks back. Obviously the ones that are in the most notable areas that are sort of obvious, but there may be some that aren't ready to come back until we make some changes and DOT makes changes, because again, those are state roads, not town roads. We paint them, but they're really, it's a state aid road, so we have to sort of work with their rules on these things to some degree. So just keep in mind that that's in the process. We did talk a little bit about that, I think, in the budget process, but I'm not sure.
And I know that's been a
It kinda stood
concern of
out.
residents of Pascal, so.
On that note, Jonathan, I think you remember us talking, the Route 1 by the Market Basket is our responsibility as well. So
Yep.
it's not all state roads or state problems.
Right.
We got the grant, we gotta take care of it, so.
Got it, yep, absolutely, and that, of course, that area is a little bit of a high-traffic area with all the
And
construction and everything.
last time, I think they hired a company to come do it. But while we're doing them,
Yeah, while we're doing them, got the paint out, yep, absolutely. So that's process, but also we'll be, you know, cleaning out catch basins, and the sweeping is largely done at this point, so predominantly, some of those things have been done. The next thing you'll also see for those on dirt roads, you'll see grading and leveling out some of those things we've seen through winter, so. That's about it.
All right,
There is,
questions for John?
it's kind of a bad hole on Route 1 just below Hannaford coming towards Rockport.
Okay,
I don't know if we can fill it or not.
we can't, but we can tell them to.
Yeah.
Yep.
you wanna take a chance, Eric, and mention Main Street over there by the Masonic Lodge? Because those holes,
Those are really bad
they
again.
could use some cold patch if they're out.
Yeah,
and
they
about.
did get filled last time when I brought it up, but again, with all the rain, of course, they all go poop, so.
Yep. Okay. All right, any other questions for John? All right, then we will move on. Any public input to any non-agenda items? Seeing none. Amendments to the agenda. We do have two amendments this evening. One is that we will go into an executive session at the conclusion of this meeting to discuss contracts, and we will be adding a topic on appointments to a wastewater task force. We will move into the consent agenda. So the consent agenda is the school warrants and the meeting minutes from April 10th and April 14th.
I move the board approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Okay. Jim, I think, will Jim have to
I
abstain?
could abstain on
Because
some
he wasn't
things, yeah.
here for the 10th and the 14th.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to put you as abstaining, Jim.
Leave me out.
Okay. Next order of business is to act on the election ballot clerk appointments. Let me get there, sorry. Working with paper again.
I don't know which is easier or harder.
All right, John, do you want to give us an update? I think there were 2 people on the
Yeah,
list for clerk appointments.
You've already approved the slate of ballot clerks earlier.
Yep.
So we just have to, we had a couple people who will be working at the polls this June, and he had to add them to the list, so they're duly appointed.
Okay.
I move the board approve the election ballot clerks appointments as presented.
Second.
Second for Jim. Any discussion? All in favor? Okay. Next item is a quitclaim deed for map 026 lot I-22.
This is it's somewhat simple. It's a common area of that development that had been owned by Steve Thomas over the last decade, 2 decades probably since it was developed. Steve has, there's an abutter who wishes to purchase it, and to clear up the records in all ways, Steve has made payment to the town to cover all of his back-owned taxes. It's a common area, so it's not a buildable lot, so there's limits in how much value. In fact, I'm not sure there's much more than $1,000 of value placed on that lot because of topography and a number of other reasons. And anyway, he hopes to, he'll just transfer ownership to an abutter, Dwight Johnson, who owns right next door.
I move the board approve the quitclaim deed on map 26, lot 122 as presented.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Another one off the list.
We're getting there.
Right,
We are getting there.
right, exactly.
All right, next item is the Donut Festival Traffic Control Plan. We're ready. Okay.
Okay. So, with the Donut Festival, we're closing down the Goose River Bridge for Friday evening on June 2nd, the evening of June 2nd, and then the duration of the day on June 3rd. So with that, because it's a state-owned road, we have to submit a traffic closure plan to MDOT. So what I prepared for the police chief and the fire chief to review, along with the harbor master to be part of that conversation, and with John present is the document that's before you, and they entered some additional information to fill the gaps. So with that, do you have any questions about it?
Any questions for Orion?
Where are we planning on parking people at RES and busing?
Yeah,
them?
so this right here doesn't
I know,
have
I'm
no
just
parking.
curious.
Yeah, so it'll be RES, and then we're trying to work out an arrangement with the school to have satellite parking there if we need it, and then a bus system to shuttle people in.
Yeah.
And then Pascal Avenue will be closed off for one-way traffic from West Street to the bridge, and then there'll be parking along, I guess, the southbound portion of that road.
So if you live in between West Street and the bridge,
If you live between West Street and the bridge,
yeah, how do you get in and out?
well, I mean, you can still get out, so you just go north and then you go up High Street. There's just, on this map, So everybody that's here, you can see the aqua blue, that's a no parking as well.
So you go up the hill and back and
Go
around.
up the hill and you can go up to Route 1 and then you can exit that way.
Any questions, comments? Okay.
I move the board approve the Donut Festival traffic control plan as presented.
We're gonna give that plenty of advertising, I hope.
Oh, yes.
Okay.
I'm gonna give him your phone number.
Do we have, do we have a second?
Leave yours first.
Yeah, I'll second.
Eric, okay. Any further discussion?
You'll have this to DOT in ample time for them to,
Oh, yes.
as slow as
It'll
government
go
works.
tomorrow.
Good.
Yeah, and it looks like signage will go up May 25th, so that gives people at least a week notice.
I will say, based on some of the stuff I've seen online, I think we should expect a big crowd on,
We should
especially on
expect
Friday night, I think.
Yes.
And everybody loves a parade, so I'm sure Saturday will be busy too. All right, all in favor? Okay.
You wanna mention the bridge dinner price change?
Oh, yes, good
Yeah,
idea.
so the bridge, the dinner on the bridge, so there was a price point of 130 a ticket, which wasn't to make profits, that was purely to cover expense, but we were able to find an additional pot of money to go into this, so we were able to reduce that to $100 a head. So
And that has been updated in the
it has been
system.
updated, and those that have
Yep.
already bought tickets, they've been refunded that difference. So.
Great. Hopefully you'll sell some more tickets and sell it out. It is the last dinner on that bridge,
It
I'm
is the
sure,
last
so,
time on the bridge,
That bridge.
on that bridge, that's
on
right.
that particular bridge.
Yeah, and there's a limited number of tickets you can sell,
There's
right?
only, 200. So
200?
There's only 200 seats.
Okay.
That's all we can accommodate.
All right, well, with that, we will move into our discussion items. So we do have the Marine Park space lease for mass stepping rigging with Skyhook. So John, you want to get us started on that item? I know we have a lot of folks in the audience tonight,
Yeah.
so.
So, let's see, how do we start this? So there's a handful of leases that the town has around Marine Park, Heron, mainly Lobster, the Boat Club. Those are the three areas of concentrated, dedicated space that the town leases space and gives out. So through that process, there's some things that come with that. There's rights and responsibilities that go above and beyond some of the, or more, I wouldn't even call them mundane, but more of the direct costs that come from the harbor fee schedule. So there was, several years ago, the Harbor Committee established a commercial service fee, $850 to basically account for, and I see Sam's here, and he can certainly speak to some of this if need be. Hi, Sam. About the direction of that, but as I understand it, it's really to accomplish the fact of there are businesses that are operating a bit beyond the average user of the park, or the average user of that space, and to, find a way to handle that cost. So through that conversation, so there's a couple different things that happen. There's that, and then there is the matter when it comes directly to Skyhook. So going back to the fall, when we had the sauna conversation, as you all remember, there was a great sort of concern about commercial services in the harbor, who should be able to have the right to work there, not work there, who's in, who's out, how much are they charged, and so forth. And the board sort of hemmed and hawed over that, gave some approval, and then eventually came back with the concept of let's have the Parks Beautification Committee, the Harbor Committee get together and work through some of these issues about what's happening there. What are these varied interests? How do we balance everything? How do we make sure that the park interests are protected, the harbor interests are protected, and so forth? So that meeting occurred this winter. There was, I think, great unanimity eventually through that conversation of what's needed by and large. And by and large, the bulk of what occurs there was sort of given, tacit approval. What didn't occur, is that there was some differences in some places where it didn't line up. And in that regard, there have been some requests, and I know the Harbor Committee has been working on this, is working on the rules and working on some of these concerns. But we're at a point, at this point in the season, certainly, where a vendor like Skyhook needs to move forward. So we have that. We have these sort of varied interests and try to ensure that everyone's allowed to be a part of the table. And then there's some of the things that came through the conversation that the board had in the fall. Making sure liability coverage is protected. Making sure that there's a fair amount that's being charged to use the space. Making sure that all the other interests that are able to use the park are still able to do so. And making sure that all that can go along without changing the character of what's there, but trying to protect it and try to keep everything right where it is. So that's sort of like a long way of saying, like, we've been a long way around the barn about this entire conversation. So prior to the last meeting, I put together a draft proposal for Skyhook to review. They looked at it and got back to me a couple weeks later and said that's not, price was not right, so forth and so on. And really, what I use as the basis of that is the same agreement Manly Lobster has. So it's a used agreement. It needs changes, obviously, for all the key places, but and some things are obviously taken out, the tanks and some of the things that have nothing to do with the operation. But largely the idea that you're renting a space in town property, there's requirements for insurance, there's a cost to it, and that's it. I mean, those are the bare nuts and bolts parts of this dialogue. So there was, I guess I would say that there was disagreement about the cost. I offered a couple different options. One, to be working, which was in the lease, which was the existing place where Skyhook operates on the corner of the bulkhead right there, on the Marine Park side of the property, or a lesser price, and I didn't define that number to a great degree in that agreement, on the other side, which would be basically next to the boat club, on that commercial side of the harbor. And we never got agreement on that, and here we are tonight. So, this is this entire conversation is driven by the fact that these leases have been approved and negotiated from town managers from years gone by, and that's the way that the board and the town has handled them. And stepping back from that, whatever can be worked out is certainly fine. The concern that as we go through the budget process and we see these finite issues, these finite resources and geography, I'm just pushed by the fact that we have to protect them. Our rules have to be strong, they have to be clear. We have to have a strong plan for where we're trying to go and what we're trying to accomplish. And perhaps this lease is outside of the plan of where the 5 of you would be or where the whole town would be. But I think, to me, it brings to mind the fact that there needs to be a longer-term conversation, and Jim and I were just talking about this before, there needs to be a longer-term conversation about the balance of all these issues. Because, we're about, a month away from my first complaints about people parking in the circle. Or all these other things that, so-and-so's doing this and so-and-so's doing that. And we have to find a way to balance these things. There are heavy users of the harbor. There are people who work in the harbor. There are people who make their livelihood based on what happens there. There are residents, non-residents. There are also people who come down there to have lunch. There are also people who come down there, go for a walk with their dog and go, do that. There's different people who use this space for different reasons. And the balance of how the town wants to value those things is really what I think needs further conversation. It's not gonna be decided tonight, it's not gonna be decided next month, but we are at a point where the pressures we're facing everywhere in town, but the harbor probably most notably, are coming to the surface. And I don't know what the answer is. I don't know if this is the answer. I don't think this is the answer. But I do think we are, we're at a point where we can't lose Rockport Harbor for what it is, right? That has nothing to do with this lease, but I'm just saying, we have to make sure that everything remains in the balance that it is. There are people who want to be in Rockport Harbor and love Rockport Harbor, and that's fantastic. We have to make sure we have all those benefits. And then the last thing I'd just say, we have some real costs that we need to confront. We have watched today, Public Works has been down there filling these sinkholes that occur. The boat club, they occur on the harbor, on the Marine Park side as well. How long can we do this? How long can we continue to putt along with these issues versus really go into fixing them? What is the solution? How do we find the solution? Again, not issues we have here tonight, but there's a constellation here of problems that we're facing. Nothing to do with the lease, but they're all parts of a puzzle.
Right.
And I guess my primary concern going into this, or thinking about anything going on at the harbor, is that we have to be careful to make sure that the public good, the public resource is protected. And we want to make sure that the balance of commercial, residential, pleasure boat, everybody that has made Rockport Harbor what it is, remains. And I'm fearful that could go away. And nobody here wants that. Nobody in this room wants that. But we need good rules and we need enforcement. And we also need to make sure that we can protect everyone's interests in that.
And I think that's the challenge right now, is there's not a process, there's not a procedure, there's not a good set of rules that says this is what the park is used for. If it's within this realm, it is this expense. If it's within this, we have harbor fees and we have all that. But I would say from a harbor, we have a harbor committee. How many people are on our harbor committee? 7. That we need them to put that together. We need them to say, this is the harbor, this is how the park should be used, these are the things that should be there. They should get together with parks. I know they've done that, but it's a collective effort. But I think the challenge we run into is we don't have those things in place now,
So,
right? Go ahead.
If I might, I've been saving my voice for this.
Okay.
We've asked for a policy with regard to the harbor use last year. And I would hope I think it was somewhere last year.
Yeah.
I would hope that
October.
would be coming, that was last year.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
So I would hope that would come forward sooner rather than later and incorporate some of the things you're talking about. Something that wasn't mentioned, and if anybody didn't get a chance to read the scrolling up there, I think there was a reasonable counter to the original proposal that was made by them.
Who was?
It was a
can't find
$2,500 offer.
500, yep.
I can't find it.
And to me, this is part of what the harbor is. They gotta do it somewhere. It's been going on for as long as I've been
Yeah.
having my lunch down there on the fisherman side of things. And I'm only 20%, I'd say, take the offer and work with them. But that's just my 20%.
Yep.
But when you do your policy for the harbor, there needs to be something included in there that has a cost of living increase on a yearly basis so that we don't fall behind where it is such a tremendous increase when the time comes to make an adjustment.
Right, and I think the challenge is too, is we set a bad precedent by charging $850, right, from the start. So we put ourselves in this position where $850 was okay, I don't know how many years it's been now, but 3 years, 4 years, whatever it is. We said, okay, that's okay, and then suddenly it's not, right? And that's the challenge that we've put ourselves in, unfortunately, that I think we need to try to work around. And again, I think you gotta have a very clear policy, procedures, table on what your fees are and what your expectations are. But that doesn't fix the problem we have at hand tonight.
No.
Because there are masts that need to be set. There are boats that would like to be in the water. And we need to figure out how to address this. So Eric,
Does anybody
Denise?
have that agreement, that, what they wrote us for a counter offer?
2,500,
It was
right?
25.
2,500?
Yes.
Yeah.
2550?
I'll make a motion.
Well, hold, we're
Let's-
not there
let's-
yet,
we're
we're not there yet. Can you also, I can't remember off the top of my head what the liability requirement was it 1 million?
I think it's 2.2 now, isn't it? If I read it right. Was it 1.2 or,
I think it was 2.
thought I read it was going to 2.2 or something.
I just think that's another thing, just as a note, that you're
But-
gonna wanna make sure is in your
Yeah.
procedure and
$2 million
policy.
with respect to property damage.
2 million?
Yeah, it's listed as
That's in
2.2.
that's in our agreement.
So,
And with us as an additional insurance.
So being the liaison with the Harbor Committee, I actually had brought this up saying, I think this instance requires that it be a lease so that there's more definition as to what the project, what the property is doing and what your responsibilities are and what the town responsibilities are. And I didn't feel that it was appropriate just to have a permit. But at no point, but my thought was around 2,500. That I was not expecting this number. So, but I felt we needed to delineate exactly who was responsible for what position the equipment was going to be stored in, how long it was going to be there. Because under a permit, it's just like, okay, you're there when you're there, and that's what happens. But I wanted something more specific. So I was trying to protect both the company and the town at the same time by providing an outline. So, I mean, that's where I stood with this. So I wasn't looking for some huge amount. I just felt it needed to be more realistic to what the work is and the lease of the space. So in my mind, initially, I was thinking around 2,500. So, I mean, whatever comes out of it, we'll have to do what we can do, but, just so you know where my thoughts initially generated from and why we're looking at this in this position and not just a permit this time.
I guess,
Go ahead.
as the Parks Committee liaison, I just come at it in a slightly bit different way, and I've definitely heard from residents who are concerned about the activity at all happening on a public park area, that there is the other side, the commercial side of the harbor, and I understand that that's, it needs to be dredged, it isn't it's great to have our floats to do the mast stepping, and, as a boat owner, I certainly appreciate the value of being able to step masts right here in Rockport Harbor where we have the boat launch, and definitely a benefit for Rockport residents. I guess I had looked at this, as a compromise position, recognizing the importance to the business of being on the park side, but also considering the impact to our residents of basically having a portion of that park not available for their use, just out of sheer safety concerns. So that's sort of where when I start thinking, what's the right number? If we, as a compromise, agree that we're not going to put you over on the commercial side because that doesn't work for your business, maybe some more improvements, maybe we have to dredge, things would have to happen for that to be a long-term plan. But we respect businesses that operate in Rockport and want to ensure that you can continue to have a business. The 6,500 is, something that John, as our town manager, had considered. I think he makes a good case here in terms of the overall cost to the boat users. If it's just a pass-through expense, even though you can make it sound like a huge number because it's based on taking a very low number and getting something that's more market rate, if you will. We charge weddings for a Rockport resident is $3,000 to just take over that harbor park for 24 hours. We charge non-residents $4,800. So if you just look at the hours that a portion of the park is unavailable to the public, if that's sort of the model, if you use what we've used for weddings, you come up with a number that's well above $6,500 in terms of a per hour rate based on a percentage of the park use. I'm not trying to really get in the weeds, but otherwise, then you're just like, wow, is it 2,500? What about 3,000? I make it this. But we want to have some fairness to all the users in the park and of the harbor. So we've got mainly Lobster, we've got the Boat Club, who are all paying, significant amounts of money to be in that location and benefit from that. We force even our own residents have to pay $3,000 if they want to rent our harbor park for a wedding. So I guess if you look at the $33 per service for stepping masts, one option would be to just have it be that SkyMast just pays us. You don't have to pay a lease of $6,500. You just pay us. I sort of like the idea of giving the residents a bit of a break. So residents, it costs them $25 per stepping as a pass-through to the town for the rent of our park space, and say $40 for non-residents, and gets you to the sort of roughly $6,500 if it works out that way. But Skyhook's not on the hook, if you will, for paying an amount that maybe their business in a particular year doesn't justify, but also creates this notion that we want to make sure our Rockport residents are benefiting from the resources that our town has.
So what's next?
It's a discussion item, so,
Yeah.
Do with it what you wish. Jim was gonna make a motion. You could make a motion, you could.
Still gonna make a motion.
Yeah,
If I knew what their agreement was, what they counter-offered was
2550, right?
2550.
yeah. I'll make a motion, we accept that. And in the meantime, work with the harbor committee, we gotta come up. He's got his hand up.
Come on in, please.
Yeah, so I have a lot of sympathy for the town's position stepping into this. And you guys mentioned, soliciting input from the harbor committee as to the use of the space. And for 10 years or so, I've been soliciting the select board for essentially the comp plan to tell us how we'd like to use the space. Now, let's see, a couple times ago, when the Mainly Lobster lease went from $50 to, I think it was $2,000, now they're at $2,500. They were paying $50 a year or something silly like that for a long time, and so that was a big % increase. The problem at that time was that all of the leases were offset, so they didn't all come due at once. And I think you guys have fixed that now.
Yeah, they do.
But there's no lease basis. So at that time, I said, we were thinking of Mainly Lobster, and I said, okay, let's figure out what it costs the town, because the town takes care of the ramp and the floats and the pilings and the pavement and maybe the fresh water and, a few things there. So I said, let's figure out what it costs. And the answer was, well, we can't because the Public Works doesn't do timesheets. Like, okay, that's a problem. We'll put that over here. Then I said, well, let's get a tax assessed value of the acreage and use that as a multiplier. That'd be something to do. I don't care what the multiplier is, 0.1, 2, I don't know. But I think that's the first issue that needs to happen, is to put these things, the first issue is probably the comp plan, figure out how you want to use the space. And then figure out a fair basis for everybody, because it does seem silly. And, I take these such and such % increases too much. I kind of think that argument's baloney, because as Denise points out, it's valuable space. We got to decide how we set the value, but $850 was a low number for the commercial use permit for a long time, but we were sort of strapped by what all these commitments we'd already made. Mainly Lobster gets a quarter acre on the waterfront for $2,500 a year, so it's kind of hard to say what anybody else should get. So I'm going to move on from that point. The location point, I think you've made pretty well, sort of the working waterfront side versus the park side. The Harbor Committee has a lot of separate individual opinions on that. I don't think we have a cohesive answer. The the last thing I want to say is I think what's important here is not the revenue that anybody makes in the spot. I think it's sort of wrong to look at what the leaseholder brings in to set their rate. I think the thing that I wish the board would be concerned about here is precedent. Now, to the point that it's valuable space, I'm in a similar field. I sort of understand how valuable it can be. And I think what these guys are doing is great, it's not hurting anybody. What I would be afraid of is setting a precedent that allows somebody to really scale it up. So, if you go ahead with, with this deal, I would take precaution that you don't leave the door open for a 100-ton crane, or because knowing how much it costs to run a boatyard, with the town launch ramp and an $850 permit to use the town's lineal feet of dockage and whatever it is to set a crane there, you could have a hell of a business. And nobody right now is sort of taking that to its extreme, but somebody could. Anyway, that's all I've got to say.
Thank you. I appreciate your input.
I did have a question
Oh,
after I
go
got
ahead.
over my
Sure.
little coughing spree there. When did the 850 go into play? How many years ago? Four?
Well, for these guys, it first came up as what are we going to charge the boatyards that are using the dockage? And I think that was we started charging that for people like Johansson's, I think, to use the dockage. And I think it's similar, if not exact, to what we charge for the commercial use for the launch ramp.
So Skyhook's been into it for 4 years, and then you guys come up with the 850, how many years before that?
Oh, I was 2 or 3,
We started. It was a year after.
All right.
But weren't you guys at Johansson's paying $850 a year to use the dock space before they came on?
I was making a donation of $1,500 a year.
Yep.
And they came to me and said, no, it's $850.
You're paying us too much.
Hey, this is why we're in this situation, right?
Yeah.
Okay, that's why we're here.
There is a generosity side of
Okay.
it.
Yeah, and there's, and it's kind of fuzzy. I mean, there's smaller operators than these guys, than Johansson's that are doing a similar thing, and it's kind of hard to set that right for everyone. And there's other commercial operators that are, the plumber that services the islands or the mooring barge, and it's kind of hard to, get the right, pill that fits everybody.
Can I ask
What's that?
a question of somebody from Skyhook? When you made your counter of 2,500, what did you use for formula to come up with that?
If you want to come up to the mic, then that way the people that are
I'm just trying, I
watching.
understand how Jonathan came up with his, I'm
Yeah.
just trying to figure out
I'll let you guys.
how you guys did yours.
So basically, we came up with that formula by a square footage. Square footage that the boat club takes up,
Yeah.
square footage that mainly Lobster takes up, including ramps and docks and infrastructure. And then square footage that we would take up. And came up with a number for price per square foot.
All right.
And we looked at it as, we understand that as a municipality, you have a lot of expenses down there. At the same time, we don't take advantage of a lot of the infrastructure as mainly Lobster or even Heron or the boat club. We bring our own dock and park the truck there for a while. So there's really nothing,
Very part-time.
it's a part-time situation for us. Over the course of a year, we might spend 300 hours total working time in the harbor.
So, you're still comfortable with the 25, and I say 2,500, I mean, what's $50 amongst friends? Let's just, after the 1,500 one over here, that's right. So you're still comfortable with that offer?
I would say.
I mean, I don't know if you're comfortable.
Can
but
I just
mean-
interject, though? I'm not sure the select board, are we going to negotiate
I'm just asking them if they're comfortable with what they made for an offer.
Okay,
I'm
We
not,
made the offer in good faith.
thank you. Yeah.
And we figured that, that was 3 times the amount that we had been paying. That it was a fair amount to offer and,
Yep.
we
We knew 850 was cheap, so we're willing to pay more,
Yeah.
but not 600% more.
Yeah, and the challenge that we faced really with this process and the reason that we're here tonight was a lack of communication. And it was mainly the lack of communication on the municipality's part. We started this conversation with a series of emails, attempts to participate in our emails specifically requested to participate in the process of the discussion of commercial uses of the harbor, of fee structures. We've never fielded a complaint in all the time that we've worked down at the harbor. We've never had an incident, an accident, anything like that. We've always carried liability insurance. And so we started to hear the, kind of rumblings in the fall that there might be a lease or a change of location or that there was an issue with our operation. We wanted to participate in the solution to that proactively starting in October. And we consistently sent emails, requests to be before the select board, including information for your packets so that you'd be well briefed on what we do, where we are located, what our business entails, and really what the scope of our operation is. Because even though in the spring it may seem like we're there quite often, and to us it seems like we're there quite often, we're only there for the mid through high tide portion of the weekdays, and it's only for 3 or 4 weeks. And then in the summertime, when the park is the busiest, we're not down there. We don't come back until the boats are ready to take the masts out. And so by coming here tonight and reaching out to the board, we wanted to make sure that the people who are elected to do the negotiating and discussion on behalf of the voters could understand what we were talking about. And so we do feel confident that, our counteroffer is fair. And we just want to make sure that you understand what the scope of what we do is in terms of impact. And thank you for the opportunity to be here
Absolutely.
tonight.
Thank
No,
you.
it's good, thank you.
Doug, I think you had a comment.
Sure, yep.
Doug Cole, I'm Chair of the Parks Committee. Just to fill in around the edges a little bit with what John said and to answer a question that Mark had. We go back to the fall when, again, the Select Board did charge the Parks Committee and the Harbor Committee to get together and begin to delineate some of the responsibilities down at that area. And Sam and I worked together over the course of the winter, as did our respective committees. The Parks Committee initially was unanimously against having Skyhook continue operating in that location. Not about anything about Skyhook per se, but again, our title is Parks and Beautification, and that's a park, and the idea of having a commercial activity there just didn't sit well with the committee. Now, in fairness, we never had a chance to speak with Skyhook. We never invited them, and they didn't come to us. And so we simply deferred to the Harbor Committee to make recommendations. But the outcome of all of this was indeed, Mark, we do have a document that was just finished up. I think John has it now, and it should be coming to the Select Board next month, that very specifically divides out responsibilities. And again, most of the harbor stuff is the Harbor Committee. The Parks Committee is going to take care of the grass, the benches, the parking, the roadways, and things like that. So, but I would also like to say, and obviously she's our liaison, but I'd never heard this idea. What about the idea of just putting a pass-through cost to your customers? I own a boat, Denise owns a boat, and these are mostly pleasure boats, and it's not cheap to own a boat. There's all sorts of costs and stuff, and you know, wouldn't that make sense to just simply add on an assessment to each thing and pass the money to the town?
Well, that most likely would be the circumstance, and we can't work, we really can't work for less than we're working now and still pay our insurances and bills and things. So
Sure.
any cost that we incur for a lease or a permit fee would eventually have to get passed on to our clients.
Yeah, well, put it up front, just say that that's a fee that the town of Rockport charges you and you don't have any control on it, so.
And we have.
Okay.
They're here.
There you-
And they're not happy about it.
Talk to them. Thank you.
You're welcome. Are there any other public comments that anyone would like to make? I know we have a large group here tonight, so, yeah, go right ahead.
I'm Max Johansson, General Manager at Johansson Boatworks. We've been working with Nate and Shane pretty steadily for the last 5 years, both in fall and in the spring, taking the masts in and out. They probably do 25 to 30 masts twice a year for us at this point, and we've shifted more of our workload to them as Rockport Marine has gotten busier and busier, which is a good thing for everybody. But just a couple of comments. You know, I'm the one who brings the mast down on the truck. I physically drive them down, step the mast with those guys. I can honestly say I've never had anybody come to me and complain about the work that we're doing down there. Oftentimes we have people lined up, taking pictures, asking us questions, taking videos, clapping and congratulating us when we get one out when it's really rough. Or if it goes really smooth, they step up and, you know, talk to us and ask us questions about processes, why we're doing what we're doing. Now, I don't know where these people are from, if they're out-of-state people or if they're town residents, obviously, but from the most part, from what I've seen, the reaction is generally positive. You know, we're never in the way. Even when I come down with the tall mast on the truck, the spot that we pull into, we make sure that we pull in far enough so we don't block the roadway, so any cars can get through or any of the boat hauling trucks can get through. So I think we generally make a really conscious effort to make sure that we're not rubbing anybody the wrong way, doing anything we're not supposed to be doing, and keeping things flowing smoothly down there. Because as you guys know, it can be pretty hectic down there in the summertime, especially when you've got, you know, Yachting Solutions bringing a boat down, we're bringing a boat down, Rockport's bringing a boat down, then you've got 3 people with skiffs trying to get them in the water. So it gets pretty backed up at times, and I think, you know, all the boatyards around here know that that's how you have to do it, and we all generally kind of work together and help each other out. But from, like I said, I just want to reiterate that point. I'm the one who physically drives the mast down there, and we've really, from what I've seen, no one's ever brought a complaint right to my face. And if somebody has an issue, they're welcome to come talk to me. I'm usually a pretty personable person. But for the most part, like I said, things go well. People take pictures, videos. Everybody always wants to know what we're doing, how we're doing it. You know, we do things generally pretty fast in an efficient manner. And that's the whole goal, is to get in and out of there so we're not causing problems and clogging traffic and all that stuff. And if I just make one comment on the commercial side, there's a few issues with that side of the harbor. Number one, the water goes out way quicker and it's way shallower than in their current spot. There's also quite a large rock right in the middle of the runway that comes out, not the one up by the bridge, but a little farther out, that at low tide is significantly less water there. And the second reason is that sharp turn by the boat club. Any mast over maybe 30, 35, 40 feet, you're not going to be able to make that turn with it on top of a pickup truck. The park now is actually set up ideally for it. You can pull in with little risk to hitting anything or doing any damage, whereas the other side, you just don't have the room to clear and get through there. And then the commercial fishermen are kind of always parking all over the place and doing their own thing over there. But the 2 biggest issues I would see moving to the other side of the harbor would be the depth of the water. So we're already limited on tides, so we would get even more limited. And then making that corner, because, you know, the Mainly Lobster truck is parked there. You've got the Rockport Marine guys have all those parking spots that they use. And it's just a very narrow turn as you go on that side. So there's just a couple of the comments and concerns I had. But I think for the most part, things have generally gone pretty smoothly, and we like working with them. And like I said, we have received to our, you know, in person to us, basically nothing but good comments and stuff from the public down there. Now, granted, like I said, I don't know if those are town residents or people from away, but for the most part, the reception has been very good. So,
All right.
thank you for the time,
Thank you.
guys.
Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead.
Hi, I'm Scott Rockneck, Rockneck Shot Sales, right up here on top of the hill. We've been in Rockport for 38 years, and this is the first time I've felt compelled to come speak before the group here. I've known Nate and Shane for years, and I've known Nate when he worked at Rockport Marine, and it'd be very difficult to replace them for the skill level that they have in order to be able to service the local boating community, but also people that come to the area from away, as far as Massachusetts, with some of our customers that want to be able to have our services and be able to launch the boats here. And I concur with the opposite side of the harbor being very difficult. There are two rocks, but there's also a current, especially in a southeast wind. It's actually dangerous. And if you look at the angle of the picture, probably on your monitor here, of that dock, it's to make that corner come in or coming out is difficult. But then you have the floats on the other side there, and that whole area is very congested. So the best place for Skyhook is just where they are now, and they are indeed repairing things on their own there. They have their own float and so forth, and I think they do add a flavor to the harbor. And I know, having coming down here for 38 years, actually before that, because we were in Camden for almost 50 years, I feel that the people that come here like to see it. When the buses come, I don't know how many pictures of me are on Facebook. Of you on Facebook, bringing, look at that guy bringing that boat in. I think it's part of the attraction. You know, just as the weddings are and the dog walking and the beach and everything else, it's the other side. The circle seems to be the commercial area. It seems to work well. And it seems to be that everyone is self-regulating and self-policing, that we all make space, we all move things, we make room for the buses, we move cars, the masts really don't get in the way. It seems to have been working on its own. And last thing, I just want to talk about the idea that you had about the pass-through fee. Well, there is going to be a pass-through, obviously, because you're going to have to raise your prices. But the difficulty there is how do you determine who a resident is? Because, for example, are we a resident, even though we're a taxpayer for 38 years, but I don't live here, I live in Camden. But half my customers are Rockport, or they're Appleton, or they're Marblehead, or they're some other place. How do we handle it? I think it's better just to do a fee and then let everyone else figure out how we're going to charge the customers. The more complex it becomes, the more difficult. And there might be some places in the world where we actually pay you to come as a town and do what you do, as opposed to charging you. So there's got to be this balance of what attracts people to Rockport to be able to use the services, employ people, and pay taxes. And I think I suggest the $2,500 fee is a good way to go. It's a good compromise, and make your rules, get things tidied up. But let's keep this simple, and let's get some mass on the boat. We're a week late already. Thank you.
I have a comment here, back here.
Hi, my name is Ed Hurlbert. I've been working on Rockport Harbor for 32 years. Cold, wet, year-round, often. And I also run Ed Hurlbert Boat Moving and Storage. I drive the little red truck. I move little boats. And I've worked with Johansson and Rocknax and Rockport Marine and Bruce Malone's boatyard. And now, of course, Aaron has that. And my business often depends on my boats that I launch and move being able to be serviced by other people, like Nate and Shane. And I recommend them. And I feel when I recommend something or somebody, I'm putting my name on the line. This is not my only meeting tonight. I also help run the Boy Scouts. And wearing the Boy Scout uniform, I am bound to be trustworthy, loyal, helpful, friendly, courteous, kind, obedient, brave, clean, reverent. But when I recommend people, I see that I'm putting my own name on the line. And I wholeheartedly recommend Nate and Shane. They are safe and professional. And the few times there's ever been issues, somebody having a problem, there is no, well, I work here, I do this, I work here. Everybody comes together. We all work together. A year ago, a boat owner didn't take the proper advice and that the tide was going out, and so left a 50-foot boat on the ramp, and it was going aground and going to fall over. And there was no question. Nate and Shane were there helping. I was there. Guys from Rockport Marine came over. We all work together, and it works really well. And so I put my own name and business on the line recommending Nate and Shane to be there. Because if I have a problem, I know that they're there to help me. And that goes the same for, I think, anybody here with a boat or any issue in the harbor.
Okay, thank you, Ed. Any final comments? No? Okay. We do have a motion on the table. It's part of a process question, though, because you have handled the leases in the past. What's,
The board can do whatever they want,
Okay.
so if the board makes a decision, go
I
for it.
don't-
And I see no issue with that.
I don't necessarily know we need to get involved with making a motion as to what the amount is and voting on it. But I think we could encourage Jonathan to use that number in going forward with Skyhook.
Or to consider the number, but also evaluate. I mean, I think the benefit of having the same person do all the leases is so that there is a level of fairness. And if it is based on square footage, maybe that's the basis. But so that there is sort of a uniform approach, not just because we have some of our favorite people in town coming to tell us that they love you guys. And that's wonderful, and it's been, I don't think it was ever a question of putting you out of business, at least not intentionally. Now, if the dollar amount felt that way, then, you know, that's to be talked about. But I wouldn't want it to be based on whoever's loudest gets the best deal with the town than someone else. It needs to be fair.
sir, I'll take your comment if you come to the mic.
Yes, I'm John Cookson, and I've lived here 50 years. It's a boat park. It's not a dog park. It's not a horse park. It's a boat park. 40 years ago, you could do it for nothing. You could walk a boat on the beach in a cradle. The boat would float off. The guy would pull the cradle out. Everybody was happy. Now we have these guys. It's fantastic. Their work is great. They're in a great spot. They're quick. They get 4 hours a day, maybe 5, for a month. But we need them this month, okay?
Yes.
So I would suggest $2,500 for this year while we research and see what we really want to squeeze the little guy as hard as we can, you know? The boats that they work on, I'd say 50% of them are under 30 feet. Maybe more. I don't know. I don't know their records. But you see a lot of little boats. The big boats are in the east side of the harbor. They got the big boats. And they're so busy, they ain't got time to help the little guy. So we need these guys. We need them this month. We don't need them next summer. We don't need them in July.
Right.
We need them in April and May, or May and June. This is it. So if
We're
we get
here.
12 months, all we need is 7 months. A 7th-month agreement from May to October. So we don't have to give them the whole year. Just give them 7 months for $2,500. You're making money hand over fist for 4 hours a day. How much do you need? Anyway, that's it.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, so we have a motion on the table to accept the offer of the $2,550. So we can proceed with that motion.
And that was seconded by,
It hasn't been seconded.
second.
Okay, so Mark seconded it. We've had discussion. Any further discussion from the board?
I would like to see it go to John with this recommendation, but not us ruling on a lease.
Okay.
So who's gonna work the lease?
Our town manager, just as he works the other leases. That's not the select, board. We haven't,
Right, so who's gonna make the decision?
John. And it can be a recommendation from us based on the amount that we think is appropriate, Jim, but I think, at least in
So
my
how long is
view, I
that gonna
don't-
take? I guess,
I've got the draft up right here, Jim, so I can plug in 2,500, whatever, however you guys decide.
Well, $2,550 at
Well-
a minimum, I
But
guess.
$2,550, right.
Tradition.
Whichever.
just saying,
Whichever,
Okay.
as quickly as possible, because to their
I'm just
point,
saying,
it's
if it
gotta be
needs to be
done.
done, let's get it done.
Right, right.
Okay, so the motion is to accept the $2,550. Mark has seconded that. As part of process, let's vote on accepting this motion or not. And then we can make another motion
That John
that John
actually-
handle that. Yes, so in favor of accepting, as a select board, and sorry, this is complicated.
Yep, it is.
Robert's rules here. The motion to accept the 2550, Mark has seconded. Who is in favor of accepting that offer? Are you in favor?
I thought you was talking to Mark.
Okay, so we have Mark, we have Eric, was that a yes? And we have Jim. So that, and I'll do it too.
And my only reason for voting against is the process. I feel like this is within the purview of the town manager. I would recommend the 2550, but I just feel like it's appropriate to have the same person entering into leases across the harbor, because otherwise it just becomes, it's not a good town
Okay,
process.
But
so,
wouldn't at some point in time, if Jonathan had agreed to a lease, if we hadn't been where we are now, he would still come back to us and say, this is what I've got?
no, we don't
No,
do
we're
that with.
not involved in any of the
We don't do that with Mainly Lobster, we don't do that with anything. Okay, so we have voted and approved the 2550. So that has passed. John will draft the lease. You'll do whatever you need to do from a lease perspective. And then the most important part is, from a consistency perspective, is we need to get these rules, regulations, procedures in place so that as these leases, because now they're on an annual basis, as these leases get renewed next year, to Mark's point, cost of living increase across the board, what have you, that there is some consistency in doing that. So, all right, we'll move on from there. So go get your mask set.
All you guys don't have to leave now. You could stay a little longer.
Gotta go get your boats ready.
So what I'm gonna do is, I'm gonna put the lease together,
Yeah,
and you sign it,
yeah,
okay? And then,
yes. Then
so
there's,
can you come by tomorrow?
yeah,
Okay.
I gotta go to the bathroom.
Okay.
Take a minute.
okay. Thank you.
Thanks.
Yes,
Yeah,
I'll
how
come
are
by
ya?
tomorrow. I have to come by tomorrow or,
Okay. Okay, then better. That's okay. It's been a long day.
wow.
Listen,
And then there was one.
if you didn't have a meeting tonight, you dressed for the part. You dressed for the part, man. No, you can do anything. That's right.
So, yes, John, I either need to do it tomorrow or Wednesday, because then I'm leaving town.
You got it.
Okay.
And we now have the precedent of if you come in and beat the table, you win.
I know, it's a,
I don't think that's the right outcome.
I know. All right, I do want to, well, I'm going to wait for Mark and Jim to get back, because we do have to circle back to an agenda item, or an action item.
And then it was quiet.
All right, and then there was one. Oh, 2, 3.
Maybe I can squeak through this while we're.
We're going to circle back to an amendment to the agenda, the appointments to wastewater task force, but we'll give Jim just a minute to come back. Oh, thank you. It's not in the materials because it was an amendment.
Probably at the beginning of it somewhere where the.
No, it's not. We just added it tonight. It's not in the materials. All right, Jim is on his way back to his seat. So we did add an agenda topic this evening for appointments to wastewater task force. So, John, do you want to give us some information on that?
We have 2 individuals who were interested and have agreed to serve on the task force. Sam Clark, who is intimately familiar with wastewater facilities, and in particular the DuPont plant, formerly worked at the DuPont plant in Rockland, Marine Colloids. He has expressed an interest. He's involved with a group that's been talking about these issues over the last few months, and so he's eager to join. Also, Lenny Gronros has asked to step forward. Obviously, everyone knows Lenny and Graffin Brothers, but Lenny also is a user of the he's a sewer user, he's a business owner, and we have a number of people who fall in that category who are concerned about the rates that we've been paying, that we are paying, and what that potential looks like. And so I know that certainly, Lenny will represent those interests with Doug and the other 4 members, willing to serve.
Okay. So we need a motion for that.
I move we appoint Sam Clark and Lenny Gonroos to the wastewater task force.
Second.
Any discussion?
What does that give us?
5,
Doug?
Doug, go ahead.
Including Doug?
including Doug.
Figure I'm on the committee. I think in the interest, though, of full disclosure, I believe Sam Clark does work at Rockport Marine, and I think they've been on the record as not really favoring the current placement of the wharf in Kramer Park. Now, having met with Sam, he's a very smart guy on this, and I think he can probably be objective, but I just wanted to bring that up as an issue. And again, I could support his membership on the committee, but I think people need to know that he is an employee there, so.
Okay, thank you. All right, any further discussion items? All right, all in favor? All in favor. Thank you, Doug. All right, now we will circle back to our discussion item on 280 Rockland Road and the bid process discussion. So sorry to be jumping around tonight, but. Okay.
So this has been quite a long tail. Ryan has been working on this quite a bit. Scott has been working on this. Mike Young has been involved in this. The police department has been involved in this. We've had the Conservation Commission weigh in. We've had the planning board weigh in. It's not simple. Anyone who thinks that, foreclosures are easy,
Nope.
let me give you another tale, because this is not quite so simple. I will say that, so Ryan and I attended the Conservation Commission meeting, discussed this property. To back up, the warrant, the annual town meeting warrant requires, prior to the disposal of property by the select board, the approval, the town must seek the approval of the Conservation Commission and the planning board. So that's why we took those steps. It seems an add-on, but it's part of the process. As I said, Ryan and I met with the Conservation Commission, had a great conversation. Obviously, concerns there of what's on the ground, what's been in the ground. We're trying to sell this property as is, where is. We're not removing paint. We're not getting into what's lead paint, what's arsenic, what's whoever's purchasing the property or purchasing
on that,
all of
right.
those issues. But there were concerns from the Conservation Commission about leaking batteries and things outside, kind of a low-hanging fruit. Ryan and Bilbo did a walk around of the property 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago, something like that, and found nothing of deep concern, right? And then so the board, the commission approved that pending whatever would be found from that walk around. That went pretty smoothly. And then Ryan, you want to just maybe talk about the planning board?
Yeah, we'll talk about the planning board. So the planning board unanimously voted that, or I guess to recommend to sell the property. But they wanted the select board to kind of consider, is there any possibility that additional housing could be brought in, given our lack of housing? And then with the back portion where that stream cuts it in half, can that be possibly sold for conservation purposes? That back part is not much of an issue. It's the housing aspect of it. With the setbacks that we have, we'd have to do some zoning changes on it, and we don't have sewer, so the density aspect of it is complicated. placing a septic system on there is also complicated with setbacks. It's doable per our code enforcement officer, but it's a challenge. So it's more of an obstacle on our end with what we currently have to try to pursue that. There's a grandfathering that they could do, but that's right up, like right where that barn door is where the MDOT right away is.
Oh, wow.
So it's right up to the
Okay,
door.
yeah.
So having been there when traffic flows by, I mean, it's very loud. So I don't,
And it's quite a slope on the back, right? Like
it drops
the, yeah.
substantially right on the back.
So there's not a lot of option for pushing it back much further.
That's correct.
Okay. So we have a sign, Mark. We have a sign.
And we're gonna put that out on 17?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Perfect.
that was,
I mean, 20,000 cars a day can't be
That's
wrong.
right. And opening bids will be on June 5th. And that's online. Is that where they get the form, or all the information is on the website, I'm assuming?
On the
Will be?
website, and, yeah, I would really urge, though, anyone who's interested to attend that walkthrough, just so they can see, we could be in a situation where we, accept a bidder, and then,
Well, that's what happened before, right? We
Right.
accepted a bid, and then when they started doing all the due diligence, from a deed perspective, it was very complicated, I think, and then they decided, so that walkthrough is on May 22nd, correct?
Correct.
We've
Okay.
taken care of the two things, number one being the deed and number two
Yeah.
being the tenant.
Yes,
the two big
yes,
things
which were the
before.
two, yes, agree.
Where did the motorhome go? That just didn't drive
I
off.
got towed.
Oh, it did.
Ryan,
They're gone.
the truck and the motorhome, Ryan took home. No, I mean,
They're in my backyard now.
he got rid of them, sold them, yeah, so.
Thank you, Orion, thank you. All right, any questions for Orion or John about 280 Rockland Road? Okay,
We'll just turn it into a graveyard.
And it is still the intent, yeah, across the street.
still the intent
Still
to
the
use that
intent.
money.
To utilize them. And I think if there's any advertisement in Penn Bay Pilot or whatever, that, that we should put that in some sort of print so that people know we're not gonna just piddle away the money. We're gonna actually put it to a use across the street to expand something that should have been done 30 years ago.
Before it was turned into a
I
forest.
mean, just trying to be a little more upfront with, I mean, not that we aren't.
I was gonna say, do people think we're piddling away the money?
Well, it depends. We talk to different people, I'm sure. I mean, but no, I mean, if any opportunity we can get to tell people that's what we're gonna do with the money, it's like the property, RES property. We're taking that money and we're using it to the fire station. So,
Okay. Any other comments? Right, do we have select board liaison reports that anyone would like to provide?
Wasn't here.
No? No, okay. Then we need, oh, go ahead.
Before
Yep,
you go to the agenda, before you go into executive session,
yes.
this is probably the time to talk about the fact that this is the last meeting for two of our members.
It is.
I didn't even,
We,
here, let me give you.
yeah. We have gifts from the town. This is sort of a tradition on the board that the town gifts to departing members who've served long and hard for a spell. It may have been 3 years, it may be 6 years. It's a token of gratitude. I know I see the picture that I received back from 2006. I look at it fondly every day. It's this job is increasingly more difficult. Jim can tell probably more than most about how it's changed from when he
From the
first started
years.
to what it's like today. But it's not an easy job. You're asked to provide great detail about things that you really have to have some distance from, but the ability to communicate, lead, represent the wishes of people who come back to you and give you comments or questions, and that's some of the best parts, I think, from when I was in the shoes that Mark and Michelle are in, is the ability to go out, someone calls, you're actually able to do something about it, get an answer, go back to them, you know, you actually can make a change. And there aren't many things in public life, especially elected life, where you can go out and change things. And I think both of you have left a huge mark on this town that will, well.
Huge mark.
Yeah, well. But no, I, you know, I think certainly you're, you know, Michelle, I've had, well, Mark, I've certainly, your tenure as police chief speaks for itself, and I think, you know, that's where I first got to know you back in those days, and.
Not because I stopped you.
No, you never did. You were, you know, you'd always just say, you know, check your inspection. But, you know, I think, you know, and I know you're continuing on the budget committee and all that, but, you know, it's hard sometimes to walk away with accomplishments. And I think you can feel as though you made a number of items, particularly in this last year, that I've been able to work with you on, that were, I think, are gonna make this place a better town tomorrow than it is today. And I think you should be proud of that, Mark, and I've enjoyed working with you to help make those things a reality. And Michelle, I mean, you know, what's a couple kids from the village gonna do but cause trouble on here? But I've it's been a great 2 years. I really appreciate your leadership and the clear-headed way in which you go through issues and logically handle them. I think you've been a great leader for the board, for the town. And we're gonna miss you, but you know, there's elections every year, so.
That's right.
You know?
It really is a goodbye
There's
for
elections
now,
every
not
year.
forever for me,
Right.
so,
Good.
So we have gifts. Mark's is not here, but Mark can come by and grab it.
Will.
It is well earned and will be well used, and that's all I'll say about that.
Yes, it will.
nice.
And Michelle, I didn't wrap this, Mike.
I was gonna say, it's beautiful.
Yes, this is.
Do I have to open it now?
Yeah, you have to
Oh,
open it
okay,
now.
all right, all right. Ooh, it's heavy.
That's how this works.
Okay, all right. It's like being at a shower or something, right?
That's right,
Everyone's
yes.
watching.
We won't make you put the bows on your head, though.
Okay.
That's,
You don't save the paper?
Oh, it is beautiful, and Diane would probably want me to save the paper.
She probably would. I mean, that
I'm
bow
sure.
was. It
Or
took
knife?
3 days. No, not really.
Got a little pocket knife. Oh, Jimmy, I knew you would have a pocket knife.
Okay, well, let's,
Old school here.
Depends on which side you're using.
Which side am I using? I do know how to use a knife. Denise, but
You did it.
here.
The thought was this would help you with entertain.
Oh, it's beautiful. Thank you.
They're made from whiskey barrels.
Wow,
And,
very nice.
yeah.
Yes,
Nobody can
look
steal
at
it
that.
from
No
you.
one can take that.
That's right. That's got 2
Beautiful.
handles on it and
Thank
everything.
you.
Very nice.
So it's been a pleasure, really, it has. I grew up in this town. Rockport will always be my home in one way or another. So it's a goodbye for now, not forever. I have some personal health things to get through, and I will, and
It's the right thing.
back. I'll be back, so.
Right thing, yeah.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure to work with you, John. I think you've done an amazing job for this town, and I think having one of our own helps. And I know you'll continue to do great things. We have a couple of new board members that will be on next month, so. Hello there.
Assuming they all vote.
You only need one.
You don't need them all.
So, looking forward to that, and I will still be in touch, so. Thank you very much. With that.
Did you want to?
Oh,
Listen,
Mark,
I'm
sorry.
still working on that street light.
Yeah, I know. I don't understand that.
I mean, that's one accomplishment.
We're going to make that by June 13th. We better climb up there yourself. You and I go out there with hard hats.
That's right, climb up on a, we might not need a ladder.
Shoot it out with a slingshot.
Maybe, yeah, that's true too. Well, yeah, he can just reach up and get it though.
All right, we need to go into an executive session,
Yep.
so I need a motion to go into executive session.
I move we leave the general session and move into executive session.
For MRS. 1 MRSA, section
Five,
405,
section 405.
6, it's contracts. I think it's, yeah, maybe.
I'll second.
That one, yeah.
Okay,
I'll
that
second
one.
whatever that number is.
Thanks for coming.
Yes. Any further discussion? All in favor?
And your presence coming by virtue of a raise for your fees for next year.
That's right. You'll be worth more, that's right.
Yeah.